So you've got a great idea for a manga. You got your OCs, deep lore, a huge world, 1,000 chapters, but it's all in your head and you haven't written it down yet. You need to do a rough draft, but you don't know where to start. In this video, we're gonna look at that. So the brain dump. This one's gonna hurt. First, you need to pull all your ideas out of your head. Well, not all of them, but just enough to make some space. So get one of these and just start filling it. You don't have to worry about the order, the aesthetic, your spelling, is it readable? None of it matters. This is not a sketchbook. This is not something you're gonna sell. You'll probably just throw it away. So just start writing. These aren't notes so much as clearing space in your head. It's okay to take some time doing this. Take as long as it needs. And it doesn't have to all be in one sitting. Some people like to do a few pages every morning. That can be therapeutic in clearing your head. It doesn't just have to be about your story. Or you can do it in little fits and starts whenever you feel a buildup of these ideas and you've just been thinking about your story all day and you need to start writing it down. Even if it's a mess, even if it makes no sense, just write in chicken scratch and feel free to move on. We're full of lame words and bad ideas, and this is one way to start filtering them out. When I'm finished writing, especially if I do a couple pages in the morning, I just rip them out and throw them away. Or just toss the whole notepad if it's full. And I actually don't read them, personally. Don't worry.
Don't worry.
The good ideas will stick around. And you're freed up by clearing out some of that brain trash. But if it's just in your head, it's gonna be really difficult to parcel out and make any sense of it. If you feel the urge to lore dump in your story, pause, do this. Get it all out in here first. Get your notebook, write all your junk in there. Then you can go back and refine your ideas and distribute them between the art and the dialogue and sort of bury the ideas into your story instead of attacking your reader with a giant page of text of, once upon a time this happened. This is not a novel, this is manga, it's visual. Now that you've pulled all that junk out of your head, it's time to shape it from memory. No notes. You can type this one or write it. It doesn't matter at this stage. List out the important parts of your story. It'll start as a chaotic mess, and you can distill it down as you go. Try to think about the overarching goals of your story, or overarching goals of the chapters or scenes, including character development and story ideas, plot ideas. As you develop an outline, try to organize your ideas into a logical progression of events and emotional beats. Saros was my first real story, and I just dove in without sorting it, I didn't know anything about story structure or anything like that. I just dove in and started doing it, and the individual chapters and books are written in Kisho Tenketsu, or at least with that in mind, but I never figured out the overall overarching story. So it's not in Kisho Tenketsu, and it isn't even in 3-act. There's no beginning, middle, or end. I just started writing and kept on writing, and hopefully that's something I'm going to get back to and figure out. So don't be like me. Figure it out first, and it'll be a lot easier. And sure, some things are going to shift and change as you grow and as you go along and get to know the story better, but this will give you a little bit of a skeleton to work with. This framework will underpin the story and help you know where you're going. Naturally, halfway through volume 1, I threw out my notes and outline and anything that I had written and just ran with it straight on the manuscript. I have some regret doing that, but I think it loosened up the story a lot, and so was an experience all in itself. Next, you want to take all these scrappy notes and scribbles, start building the story, and sort them out into your 4-part structure. I go into this deeper in another video, but let's just go over it real quick so you can follow along and have an idea of where we're going. So part 1, your intro, set up the story, introduce your characters, your setting, etc. Part 2 is develop. Expand the intro, develop the character a little bit, tell us more, don't change anything, but reel in your reader and make them care. Part 3, recontextualize or twist. An unexpected turn or a little bit more information that changes how your reader sees what they were told in part 1 and 2. This makes a great format for horror and comedy and is somewhat similar to the climax in the 3-act story. Part 4, reconcile parts 1 and 2. Wrap up the story and show the aftermath, what happens after the twist. This works for the overall story, the chapter, scene, single page, or a 4-koma, which is literally 4 panels. This format doesn't rely on conflict and conflict resolution, so you can use it for slice of life or vibing manga where nothing is really happening, you're just kind of existing in the moment. Okay, so we're getting closer to the rough draft, and you'll probably want to make some decisions as you're prepping your mind to make this thing. Hopefully you're smart, unlike me and you've mapped out your story and have some idea of what you're doing and where you're going. If you're planning on printing your story, volumes tend to be a minimum of 150 pages. Depending on the size of chapter you want to do, that could be 5 chapters, it could be 2 chapters, and can take 6 months to a year to make the full manuscript. And if you're new, it may take even longer. Instead of diving straight into an endless epic with hundreds and thousands of pages for years on end, make it shorter, scale it down, and set some limits. Start out with something small, a small idea, so you can get your feet and cut your teeth and get an idea of what you're doing and getting into before you get trapped into something. 1,000+ chapters is not realistic, and honestly, it's not fair. Yes, I know Oda Sensei has done that much and more, but he's weird and he's unusual even in his magazine. He is a special and unique creature, but he also has the support of an entire company behind him. He's got his editors, he's got assistants, he's got people helping him out doing all kinds of things. It's not just him in between his 40-hour-a-week muggle job scratching out some pirates. Gotta be realistic here. Cut yourself some slack. In the manga industry, it's really common for creators to have multiple one-shots and failed series before they make their big break. If you go back and read, you can see them honing their craft and getting better at story writing and getting closer to their idea. And sometimes each one-shot and failed series, it's like they're building their way towards their big series. I truly wish I'd realized this and thought about it when I decided to keep going after I made Saros Volume 1. I had decided to aim for 20 volumes without really understanding what that meant and without planning a 20-book story arc. These days, I recommend starting with a one-shot or short story set in the world you want to work in that focuses on one idea or concept, perhaps 10 to 30 pages. Don't even think about cramming all of your ideas into this. I see you. This is just a warm-up. Pick a situation or a moment and play it out. The SMA editors and judges actually talk about this a lot in their comments for entries that kind of won or didn't win, where they had too many ideas, it was too complicated, and made it difficult to parcel out and read. And they say, focus down, pick one thing, and really simplify it. As you do this, you'll experience how long it takes you to draw each page, test out the complexity of your character designs, which are probably too complex to draw over and over and over and over, and see if you can repeat them. You'll also get faster over time and more efficient at the way you work and the way you draw. You can feel out how detailed or simplified a style you want to work with, or what your style is, and you can feel out and try screen tones and color and decide before being trapped in one or the other which one you'd rather use, and feel out if it's going to be sustainable long term. Most importantly, you need to finish. You need to finish a story, set it aside, and start another one. Because really, when you look at it and you look at the professional industry, that's a mangaka life. It's not just one long story necessarily, it's story, another story, another story. It would be the same if you're working chapter to chapter. You have to do a chapter, and then another, and then another, and then another. As you make more stories, your writing and drawing skills will improve. You may see a jump every 50 pages or so. So that could be every 2 or 3 chapters. I'd heard about this happening and was really surprised to see it in motion. And sometimes it's weird to go back and look at other volumes and see those jumps. If you start from scratch or from zero with an epic, your future readers, as you've gotten better, will have to slog through your first few chapters where you can't draw, you can't write, and it's really difficult, and it takes forever for them to get to the good stuff, where you're decent. Or you can be tempted to go back and redraw and catch it up a little bit, which can take forever. I spent a whole year or so doing that myself, and I don't recommend it. By starting small and making a few shorts, or even enough shorts to fill a 150-page anthology, you can hone your skills before starting into something longer. And the readers you'll get over time will dip in and out of these and see your growth, which for them apparently is actually kind of fun. But even then, I wouldn't aim for 1,000 chapters. To give you a sense of scale, let's look at the numbers, or my numbers. After 7 years of drawing manga consistently and constantly, it takes me about 4 to 8 hours to finish a page digitally. Traditional takes longer because there's more steps. So these days, a 20-page chapter of Scatheless takes a couple of weeks, sometimes 3, especially if I'm working. That's 80 to 160 hours per chapter. 10 chapters per book, which means 800 to 1600 hours per book. That's not including the pre-press work, illustrations, and advertising. At this pace, let's say 10 chapters a year. 1,000 chapters would take 100 years. If you plan to release this monster weekly, that's at least 80 hours a week on top of your muggle job and your family and sleeping and eating. It's a lot. And at this stage in your career, it's for free with no time off ever. You don't have time for time off, potentially with no traction or readers. So if you start small, you can time it out to your life. You can give yourself breaks in between stories. You can quit if you decide you don't like it and just illustrate or doodle or whatever you want to do. Coloring books. I don't want you to lose hope or motivation. It's not my goal here. I'm just being realistic. I see a lot of aspiring mangaka out there who plan to be the next Oda. Believe me, I felt or feel it myself.
Rip me.
But we all need to look at what that actually means. Scatheless, for example, is going to be about 25 chapters, up from the original 6. I don't know how she planned to fit this in 6 chapters, but that's an aside. And it's turned out to be a 3 to 4 year, 25 chapter project. And the thing is, after doing it, I've realized you can always start another story. With Saros, again, I set out to do a bazillion chapters without really thinking about it. And now I'm 40 chapters in, and the pandemic happened, and conventions stopped. I had no readers, so do I finish it? What do? I started doing other things, and then I forgot the story because I don't write anything down. And here we are. If I had kept it short and done it in little snippets, I could have finished up that part of the story and then left it or started new, or it gives you a lot more flexibility. I want to give a quick shout out to Crumbs on Twitter for her great thread, Understanding How Big Your Projects Are and the Commitment They Will Take. In it, she talks about her plans for an 800 chapter story and refining it down to 60. Saros started as a 200 chapter idea, and likewise, I kind of want to whittle it down to about 60. 60 sounds good. We're just over halfway there. If I remember what I was doing so I can finish. It really got me thinking and inspired this video. Check out her manga Godsbane. The way she draws wings is... So consistency is key. Hopefully at this point we have a sense of the scope of our series, chapter size, or short story length. Next is a schedule, both for posting work and for working. How much and how often you want to post will inform how much you need to work each week. Weekly, bi-weekly, and monthly are the most common. Sometimes you'll see quarterly, but stretching out any further than that, and readers tend to forget what's going on. Whatever you choose, stick to it, as your readers over time will rely on that release schedule. It's easier to start releasing more often once you've got your feet than having to spread it out and take more hiatuses and disappear into the void as your life unravels and you can't get it done. Life happens, and so does burnout. Trying to get out 20 pages a week, because that's what manga professionals do, who, don't forget, have assistants and a company behind them, it will burn you out, and you'll probably stop creating altogether. Short stories will help you figure out what kind of schedule works for you for creating and posting. And trust me, as I said, you'll get faster over time. If you find you're getting 3 hours a night of sleep, have no friends, have no life, live on snacks, and your house is a disaster, welcome to the manga life. It doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that way. That will lead to burnout. That will ruin your life, ruin your stories, ruin your drawing skills, damage your hands. It's just bad. Making manga should be fun, as well as being hard work. It's just comics. It's not that serious. It's not the end of your life. Don't die. Don't give up. Get some sleep. If you need 8 hours, take 8 hours. Your story will wait. This is all a little forward thinking, but I wish I kind of knew this instead of running in blind, getting overwhelmed over and over before crashing and burning out multiple times before ultimately burning out to the point where I couldn't do anything and just laid in bed for a week. I had to get myself a muggle job a few days a week to break this cycle of doom, and eventually I started drawing again. At first, the excitement, the passion, the inspiration, and the initial momentum will carry you through the workload. But at some point it becomes a grind. This is where habit and discipline come in. It apparently takes about 2 months to create a habit, which all in all is not that long. So I suggest picking your workspace, then try to stick with it and work there regularly. A desk, a couch, probably not bed. I don't recommend bed. If you can draw something, a panel, some inking in your workspace every day, even if you can only sit for 15 minutes. But hey, maybe you have a full-time job, you have a family, and you have to sleep 15 minutes. After a while, it becomes part of your routine. So after 2 months, your mind and body knows as soon as you sit there, it's manga time, and can actually help you get into the headspace. The story will lock back in, you're ready to go, the artwork is flowing. During my first volume, I worked on a farm, and here in the South, in August, it's brutal. It would be, it'd be 110 degrees, high humidity. I'm drenched and soaked when I got home. On the hottest days, my minimum was 1 panel, a page if I could manage it. So I would come home, direct into the shower, direct to my desk. Do not sit on the couch because I would never get up. But I would do my panel. And if after 1 panel, I was like, I can continue. I'd do another panel or a page. But if I did 1 panel and I was like, I am dying, literally dying right now, I would go take a nap, and it would be okay. Don't guilt trip yourself over this stuff. As I said, it's not that serious. After a while, I found that I could do more than I set out to do. So 1 panel turned into a page, 1 page turned into 5 pages. My artwork was a lot more simplistic back then, so 5 pages was a lot easier to ink than it is today. It let me get the rest I needed without guilt, and my manga kept me working on. The rest of the year, I worked on it as soon as I got up to when I fell asleep, sometimes 10 p.m., sometimes 3 a.m. There's a toxic belief stemming from Japanese work culture that getting no sleep is a badge of honor. Oda himself has claimed that he only gets 3 hours a night, and many fans worry about his health. Will he die before we see the end of One Piece? Look at Berserk, it's possible. And you're working for free. You don't need to die for free, so you need sleep. And if you're sleep deprived, you're not gonna be creating at your best anyway. Get your sleep, get your rest, eat, all those normal things, and you'll be better prepared for the heavy work that you're doing. Rest and breaks should be part of your discipline. Overdoing it will leave you as an empty husk with no drive or inspiration. This is burnout. You can also get hand and wrist injuries from doing this too much. It's not worth it. Write, draw, take breaks, do chores, get sleep, have experiences, things that you can pull from your heart and your memory to write and draw about. Refill your creative cup. Stay in love with your work long term. If you're wanting to do this 1,000-chapter nonsense, you're gonna need to slow it down and be 200 years old so you can do that. With all this planning sorted, hopefully you're ready for your name or rough draft. So check out this video where I go over the process.